In this lesson, we are going to see how to handle null values with joins. In this lesson, we will cover two main methods. First, using if-null. The if-null function replaces nulls with the default specified value. Non-null values are returned normally. The next way would be using if with is-null operator. Use the if function to check if the values are null. If null, the function should return a particular value, else return another value. Suppose this is our data set. If you recall, this data pertains to geographic areas that could be part of a very simple map database. It has 4 rows and 3 columns: ID, area type, parent ID. So ID 1, it refers to area type city and the parent ID for that is 2. Whereas ID 2 is area type state and refers to parent ID 3. So on and so forth. So problem at hand is to fetch the child category names of area type along with their parent types. Now, you remember how did we solve this? Well, we had only one data table with us, so we performed a self join. We want each of the 4 area types basically. Consider this table as the left table and the parent names, consider again this table as the right table to combine together and give you the output. So we performed a left join to get the specified columns to ensure that city, state and country along with continent shows up in our final output. In short, we got the parent names by matching the parent ID value with the ID column. And here was the code that we used. So that's how we achieved the resultant output where the parent ID 2, that is the parent ID for city, is actually the ID for state. Means city is the child and parent is state. Similarly for state, parent is country. For country, parent is a continent. Whereas for continent, we don't have any parent because there is no ID which is matching the parent ID 5. That's why it is null. Now we can arrive with the topic for this lesson, handling null values, right? Suppose we modified a problem statement and it says, if the parent type is a null value, return the value as n/a. That is NA, it should be returned instead of null. This means in our output, wherever we have null, it should be written as NA. As you can see over here, right? This highlighted yellow part. Great. So how do we modify our code snippet? Well, let's introduce the if-null function. Select c.area_type as child, which is same as the previous one. The only change is the next column which we are picking up in select. It says if null. If the column p.area is null, then populate it with n/a and present it as a parent column. From geographic area C, left join with geographic area P, and on which columns we are joining? C.parent ID is equals to P.id. So wonderful. Let's now see the output on Metabase. Let's have a look first at the geographic table. Select star from, it selects all the columns from geographic areas. Let's execute this. And we got the desired output. We have 3 columns, 4 rows. 4 rows are ID 1, 2, 3, 4. We have area type and parent ID for each and every ID. Great, this is what we have seen also. Now first, what we will do is that we will join the tables such that we get the child and the parent entry. So what we are doing is fetch the child name along with parent area name. How we will do this? Let's execute this. and we got the output. We have two columns as we have picked up child and parent. The parent ID of city is the ID for state. That's why ID is the parent for child city. Similarly, for state, it is country as the parent. For country, we have continent as the parent, whereas for continent, we don't have any parent, and that's why it is null. Now, let's modify this. What we want to do is, I'll copy paste the same thing. It's just some addition that we have. Let's change it accordingly. Now, in the question, what's the addition is? If the parent type is null, then return the value as n/a, right? This is what I want to return. Everything remains same. The only change is in the parent column in select. So what we will do is this. We are checking the condition. If null, what is null? It is p.area type. If this is null, then what should be populated? It should be populated n/a. And the name should be given to this is parent, as parent. Let's execute. Only one small change. So let's execute this, and we got the output. Previously, it was null. Now you can see it is n/a, right? Instead of null. So if it is null, it is checking. If this column is null, it will fill that value with this thing. Whatever you give, I'm giving NA, that's why it is filling it with NA. So great, we got the output as desired. Now let us see the working on a larger data set. Let's reuse the examples from a left join lesson. Consider the table employee detail and department info and region table for our example. You are already familiar with these tables, but let's quickly observe their entries that we have, the number of rows, columns, all the things that we have. So first is employee details. So what we will do is select star to select all the columns from employee detail. Let's execute this. Great. So we got the output. This is employee detail for 1000 employees over here, and there are 9 columns which tells what is the employee ID, first name, last name, email address, when the employee was hired, which department employee is working, what's the gender, how much is the salary, and which region ID that employee is working in. So these are all the details that we have in employee details. You are familiar with this, but still it's good to have a look at the table before we execute it or before we put it into query. Now let's look at the department table. Underscore info table. This is the table. Let's execute the query, and we got 2 output over here. 2 output gives you 24 different departments along with their division. We have automotive department, which has division as hardware. Similarly, we have garden department. It has division as outdoors. For toys, it is kids. Like that, we have 24 different departments. Let's see for regions also. Right? Let's execute this. And we got the output as 3 rows, 7 rows and 3 different columns. 3 columns are region ID, region and country. So for region ID 1, region is Southwest and country is United States. Similarly, for region ID 6, region is Quebec and country is Canada. So we've got all the details over here for regions table as well. Now if you remember, we performed a left join with these 3 tables, right? What was the left join that we performed? We want fetch department employee ID, region ID and region details such that all departments are part of our output, right? So how we will do this thing? Very simple. Now we want department from department info table, employee ID from employee detail table, and we want all the departments listed. There could be a chance that some department are missing in employees table. So department info table is the main table having all the department detail. It means we have to do a left join between department table and employee table first of all to get department name and the employee ID, right? Then further we have to do a join with the region table such that for all these we have the region ID and the region name also. So let's do this. Select D dot department underscore info underscore data. This is first column. Then we want E dot employee ID. Then we want R dot region ID. And we also want R dot region, that is the region name. From which table we want all these things? First comes our leftmost table, that is departments info table. And aliasing it as D. Next we are doing left join. With which table we are doing a left join? We are doing left join first with employee detail table, right? Employees detail table, aliasing it as E. On what column we are joining it? The common column is the department ID, right? Department name. So T dot department info equal to E dot department. Make sure that the column names you are picking up correctly. Column might be different in two tables. It is not mandatory that they are similar. We have seen this thing prior also. Now we want to do a left join. With which table? With regions table, right? So regions as R. On which column? On E dot region ID, that is from employees table, I am taking the region ID equal to R dot region ID. Let's execute this. And we got output. Department name we have employee ID as well as the region ID and region. So automotive, how many ever the employees are there, all the combinations are coming over here with their region ID as well as the region. So we have seen this already. Let's proceed further. Now suppose I finally want to filter out the records that do not have a matching region ID. How can I write this in code? Of course, we add a where clause to filter the null values. So what we will do is this. Let's keep this code as it is and modify this below. I'm copying this and let's modify it. So pick only records which have null region IDs. Right? So what we have to do, same code, everything remains same, just the condition would be where R dot region ID means after executing everything, check if it is null, right? Let's execute this. And we got two departments for which we don't have any matching region ID. Why we don't have any matching region ID? Because these are the two departments where we don't have even any matching employee ID. If employee ID is not there, it means there is no region ID for sure for that. If region ID is not there, how will region table be joined on that? That's why we are getting only two records over here. Okay, so now let's handle all the null values in the three columns of our output now. Three columns: employee ID, region ID and region. So what we are doing is, we want to mention over here that if employee ID is not there, it should be written as no employee ID. If region ID is there, not there, no region ID. And if region name is not there, it should show as no region name. That's it. That's all that we want. So let's handle this. Again, I am copy pasting it over here because we are just modifying the same piece of code. Okay. Handle null values in three columns. How we will handle this? Now we won't pick up these columns directly. We have to pick it up with a different value also being input in this or being coming as the output. How? If this column is null, which column? It is E dot employee ID. Then what should I write? I should write no employee ID. Right? That is one column. Next column is if null. For which column? That is my region ID column, right? That is R dot region ID is null. Then what should it say? It should say no region ID. That is, a third column is also done. Last column is if null R dot region. If R dot region is null, then what should it do? It should say no region. No region name, let's write. No region name. That's it. Only changes in terms of select, nothing else. Everything remains same. If you see, previously it was null. Now it is saying it is not having any employee ID, no region name from both the rows. Great. So we have been able to achieve this. Now we will modify this to look at this in an other way. That code will remain same. Okay, code is not going to change very significantly. It is just a small change that how we can handle. Now what we are saying, we don't know. In this case, so we knew that two rows are coming as null. I am saying if it is null, then give this value. If it is not null, then give whatever is the relevant value over there. So everything remains same, just the way of writing it will differ a bit. So instead of if null, I am checking if. If this column is null, inside this I am checking. If this column is null, then write no employee ID, else give me value as it is. That's it. Similarly, for this one we will change. If this column is null, then give me no region ID, else, so it is like a true and false it will match. So else it will give r.region ID only. So in case it is not null, it will give the value as it is. If it is null, then it will give me no region name or no region ID, whatever is the column that or whatever is the value that I am mentioning over there. Okay, let's execute this. And you will see the output remains same because all are null values and they are matching our criteria. So in this case, when employee ID is null, it will give no employee ID. If it would have been present, it wouldn't have been null. Whatever is the value present, it will give that output only. To summarize, we can handle nulls by this way, that is using if null. The if null function replaces nulls with the default specified value. Non-null values are returned normally. And this is the typical join syntax with a slight modification. You are already familiar with the original syntax from the past few lessons. But what is the modified portion? It is if null t2.column underscore name 2 default value if null. So if this column is null, then whatever I am mentioning over here, default value if null, that should be given as the output. Another way we can handle nulls with joins is by using if with is null operator. Use the if function to check if the value are null. If null, the function should return a particular value, else return another value. And here's the other way to write the SQL code. It says if this column is null, then value whatever we are giving value if null. Otherwise, value if it is not null, means the original value that we have. So it is like a true and false. It will check this condition. If column name 2 is null, it will check yes, it is null. So true. Then give me this value if null, whatever value is mentioned over here. If it is not null, it means it is false. Then give me this value. Awesome. So this concludes module 2. See you in the next module.